I was cooking some steaks when Black Mick came in. I felt friendly, so I asked him to sit down. We talked about finding jobs and whether it was better to beg or steal, but Mick didn't like either. He believed both were wrong. Mick was a worker who wanted a stable life, but jobs never lasted, and he kept ending up on the road. Mick had a strong, calm way about him, even in that poor room, which made me feel a bit strange. We ate all my food and smoked quietly, almost forgetting the room around us. Then Mick's eyes moved to the door, where a man was trying to enter. Mick tensed up, and as soon as the man walked in, Mick jumped forward. The new man was quick. He grabbed a metal poker from the fire and hit Mick on the head before running out the door. There was a girl involved, Mick told me later when we were on the road. To him, women were good, and men were the ones who did wrong. We walked to different places looking for work, but everywhere was full. Sometimes other workers gave us food or beer, but there were no jobs. Then we got to Liverpool. Usually, I liked sleeping at Bevington House, but I'd heard my old friend Twinetoes was staying at another place that night. I thought he might help us out and know about job openings. It was a rough place, for men were fighting over a pan, and an old woman was singing an Irish song. The men looked thin and unshaven with sneaky eyes. The woman wore an old scarf and a shawl, and one side of her face looked burned, with one eye that kept watering. "Got any money, dearie?" the old woman asked Mick. "No, sorry," Mick said gently. "Is there a man here named Twinetoes?" "No money? No use to me," she replied, then kept singing sadly. The boss came in from the kitchen. "Twinetoes? Strange name, but there's a guy upstairs called Brum. Maybe that's him." It was. We found Twinetoes drunk and asleep in a messy bed. We couldn't wake him up. "This place stinks," Mick said. It did smell worse than most cheap places. We paid 4 pennies each, picked 2 beds in a corner, and went to sleep. I woke up suddenly. It was 1 o'clock, and all I heard was Twinetoes snoring softly. I felt something strange in the room. The old woman was standing over me. She'd looked weak downstairs, but now she moved quickly, like a monkey. I had hidden my boots and coat under my head. Her hand felt around my boots and pockets, but found nothing. Then, angry, she tried reaching under my blanket. I turned a little and moaned to make her back off. She then raised a metal pipe over me, ready to strike. Just then, the boss grabbed her arm and pointed to the door. She resisted, wanting to search Mick. She moved to his bed, still silent, and checked his things but found nothing. Furious, she spat silently at him and left. I lay awake for a long time. Later, the boss came back with a big piece of canvas. He hung it in the middle of the room, blocking us off from the door. He wasn't loud, but didn't try to be as quiet as before. As the boss went downstairs, Mick suddenly woke up. We heard soft laughter coming up the stairs. "What's that?" Mick asked, surprised. "Just wait," I replied. Mick got up, took out his knife, and cut a few holes in the canvas so we could see better. The place was so silent, we could hear every sound from below. Mick and I were wide awake, listening closely. The old woman was talking softly to someone, offering a drink. We could hear the girl's steps as she came up the stairs, with the old woman close behind her. The girl entered the room hesitantly, guided by the old woman, who led her to sit on the edge of a bed. The girl looked young, maybe a servant, dressed in a dark hat, white blouse, and blue skirt. She seemed a bit drunk and tired. Her laugh had sounded cheerful, but now she looked sad and lost. The old woman was pretending to be kind, touching the girl's arms and talking sweetly. The girl, feeling hurt by her job, complained about her hard life as a servant. She said her employer locked her out for being late and that she was tired of the job. "Stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll get you a nice dress and a good time," the old woman promised her. I glanced at Mick. He was watching closely, looking serious and upset. I could tell he wanted to step in, but I held him back. We waited, not sure what would happen next. As the old woman mumbled, she loosened the girl's clothes until the girl stood unsteady in her thin underclothes. Gently, the old woman rolled her into the creaky bed. The girl's right arm lay across the quilt, her shoulder bright against the dark. The old woman sat watching her quietly, almost like she was praying. Mick looked at me, both of us wondering if something was wrong. Then we heard quiet steps on the stairs. The boss came in with one of the dock rats, who stared at the girl lying half-covered on the bed. The old woman spoke to the boss, saying something about a proper job. The dock rat asked, "What's my share?" The boss pointed to the girl and whispered that. Mick and I understood everything in that moment. Our anger and disgust were clear, and we knew we had to act. I nudged Twine Toes awake, and once he understood, he put on his boots too, still shaking off his drunkenness. Meanwhile, the old woman covered the girl again and argued with the boss about money. The boss muttered, "You'll get in trouble for this." "I want my full share," the old woman demanded. As the boss and the dock rat turned to leave, Mick suddenly glared at the dock rat by the girl's bed. "I'll tear him apart," he said. The old woman heard him and swung her lead pipe. Mick jumped through the curtain but got tangled, giving the old woman a chance to hit him. The room erupted into chaos. Twine Toes fought with the dock rats, and I struggled with the boss. The girl woke up, confused and scared, watching as the fight went on around her. I yelled for Twine Toes to drop his opponent, but he held on and kept fighting. Twine Toes used his strength to knock out one of the dock rats by butting his head. Meanwhile, I managed to hit the boss hard enough to throw a quilt over him. I quickly turned to help Mick, who was still struggling with the old woman's lead pipe. I grabbed her, pulling her away, and struck her down. Everyone was too focused on fighting to shout or make much noise. I told the girl, "Get dressed quickly." She obeyed, although a bit stunned. The alley outside was dark, but we needed to escape quietly. I warned her, "Don't make a sound, or we'll leave you here." She clung to me in fear, but I pulled away, hit the boss one last time, and we all left. In the street, Mick was bruised but fine, and Twine Toes just wanted a drink. I had a black eye and a sore wrist. The girl kept crying, "What's going to happen to me?" "Stop it," I said, frustrated. Then, looking at Mick, I added, "He's the kind of fool who won't leave you. He'll marry you someday," and he did.